Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cheryl Lynn Harvey Show. I'm so excited tonight to introduce my guest, Randy Seton from Balboa Island. I want to call him the unofficial mayor of Balboa Island because he really was at the time when I met him, which was, we determined a long time ago.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So let's start with a little bit about what you're doing now, Randy.
Well,
Tell us about yourself.
I'm retired now, and I moved from Balboa, Newport Beach to Kailua Kona on the Big Island of Hawaii. And I bought a house, and it's very suits my needs. It's wonderful. It's nice and warm there, and my body loves warm weather. The people are wonderful. I just really am enjoying the Hawaiian vibe. It's still there, and the aloha mix. And Newport Beach, kind of like, I did a lot of work there when I was in my environmental trek with the bay and the water and all that. And it just, people weren't involved. And I just like, why even try to sell something to people with, bricks in their ears that don't listen? So I just said, nobody cares. It doesn't matter. I'm done. I just need to move away. And it was a 10-year plan, and it worked out. And I did it, and I'm really happy. There's some days when it's over 85 that I wish it was a little cooler. But right now, being in Newport Beach for my 50th reunion, Corona Del Mar High School, class of '69, and it's been like 58 degrees at night. I am freezing my rear end off, and so that's where I'm at right now. But I really love being in Hawaii. I love seeing my old friends, and with Cheryl here, and we go back.
We're having a little barbecue tonight. Cheers!
It's been really fun.
Yeah, great to see you. Okay, and also what I forgot to mention is that Randy is Amelia's son from Amelia's restaurant on Balboa Island, which was iconic. And how many years was Amelia's actually there?
55 years.
55 years, wow. 90% of restaurants fail.
Yeah.
So that is just a remarkable, amazing situation. So can you tell us a little bit about your history, Randy? Like where you grew up? I know there's the Los Angeles story and then it transitions into Balboa Island. And tell us about your skipper and your boats and all that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I was born in L.A. I'm an Angelatino, is that what they call them now? I guess I'm part of that group.
Angelino.
I didn't know I was then. But I was born in Our Lady Queen of the Angels Hospital.
Oh, I know where that is.
And a lot of people were born there. And grew up there, I was in the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts. My parents, we went to church on Sunday. We went to the social things at the church with my family. It was just real normal living. And my friends across the street, their friends had a grandmother that had a house on Little Island. And they'd always invite me to go down with their boys since I was 3. But I couldn't go down until I learned how to swim. And they taught me how to swim when I was 3 years old. So now that I was waterproofed, I could go down with them, and they'd use me as ballast when they go sailing on their sabots and their thistles down there. And then I learned to sail. By the time I was 4, I could sail a sailboat. And it was a lot of fun. So off I go. And I didn't own a boat. I loved to fish. I just became a water person. And as it went on, then, back when the surfing whole vibe came on in 61, that's when we moved to Newport Beach from
1961.
Because my mother saw this restaurant called the Cape Cod House that's on Marine Avenue there back then. They also had another one in Anaheim. It was an all seafood restaurant. It was like from the East Coast, and it had like Finn and Hattie, deviled crab, oyster stew. Finn and Hattie is like dried cod. They take cod, they dry it. It's very European. And then when you go to rehydrate it, you soak it in water, then you soak it in milk, and then they cook it in milk, and it's just wonderful. It has a smoky flavor. It's an old, it's because they didn't have refrigerators at a certain time in their world.
Of course.
And so they had different ways of handling meats and fish and staples and stuff. So that was one of them, was the Finn and Hattie thing, which they probably did all over Europe. And so my mother had to have this restaurant. My dad thought she was crazy, but he was the one that told her about it, right? So they bought this restaurant that had all this traditional East Coast seafood, and nobody else had that in Newport. You come down, most of these restaurants were all steak and lobster houses, and you had a shrimp cocktail, you had French fries, onion rings, baked potato, and salad, and
just
and
like
steak.
the VI. Remember the VI used to have
All of
just
them, Chart
prime
House,
rib and
all that
baked
stuff.
potatoes.
Yeah, Ancient Mariner, all those guys, they're all surfers and stuff. But my mom's restaurant was all seafood. Well, my grandfather on my father's side, Mr. Alexander McGregor Seton, and my father was McGregor Seton, and I'm Randolph Alexander McGregor Seton. Anyway, I'll write that on check. So anyway, he told my mom, so I'll loan you the money to buy that restaurant if you'll make your lasagna, so I can come to the beach and have lasagna down there.
Really?
So,
I've never heard this part.
yeah, so they agreed, and my dad was just like, oh my God. So he loaned her the money. I think they bought the restaurant back then. It was like $39,000.
And now was that the
On
land
Marine,
and the building
yeah, the whole
as
kit
well?
and caboodle.
Wow.
The business, the everything. And that was grandfather. There was no rules back then. And so she ran it and learned how to do it. And she cleaned that kitchen, so it was beautiful. And she would wear, my mother was also a clothes designer. She's from Italy. She was born in a little town off of the Sorrento Peninsula
I remember
called
watching
Massa
movies.
Labrenza. And they also had a restaurant on Isla Capri called Il Gratino, which is still there to this day.
What does Il
It's been
Gratino mean?
Grotto, the grotto. There's a thing, the blue grotto there. I could be wrong, I'm sorry. But it's still there. It's run by my cousins, and it's quite popular. And
How long has that restaurant been
it's
going?
been there. It's in their 80th years.
Jeez Louise.
And the Kennedys went there, and yeah. So anyway, they were on this peninsula, and my father, when he was he was a sergeant in the United States Army during World War II, working for the Allied Command in North Africa. They decipher codes and do all kinds of stuff like that. That's what the Germans were talking about. And when they went to Naples to invade Naples, on the weekends they go to these little field trips. They're like guys, they're looking for girls. And they went to this little town in Massa Labrenza, and that's where my father met my mother. And that was it. And they got married. They had 2 weddings. They had a Roman Catholic wedding and a Presbyterian wedding. And she came home pregnant with my sister on the war bride boat. There's thousands of women pregnant coming to the United States.
Oh my gosh.
They're all married to these soldiers, and so that's how it all kind of began. And then so here's a restaurant on the Isla Capri. Now here's this restaurant on Balboa Island. Pretty amazing. And she loved it. My mom would work there, and people loved to. Half the time, people on the bayfront she walked to work because you didn't have to. She never drove a car, and there was no place to park anyway. Balboa Island, if you've been down there, it's pretty impossible. And so she'd wear these amazing outfits and walk down the bayfront and go put on an apron and cook 80 meals, 90 meals a night. And if it was over 90, she'd tell my father, that's it, shut that door right now. I'm not cooking one more meal. And that's how they ran the business. And then, later, and my dad was a real estate broker in L.A. And an insurance broker also. So if you're going to buy the property, you got to buy insurance, right? So he saw both ends. And it's just my grandfather, they're Scottish guys, so they kind of had it down. And they were good, honest businessmen. And then my father finally sold his business and went in the restaurant business and ran the front desk and did all the books and ordered the wine and picked things up. My mom cooked, and she was they were both the hostess, the host of everything. It was pretty amazing. And they ran that for a while. And then my mother found that in Newport Beach, from her friends, that were a lot of movie people from Hollywood, like Claire Trevor. She's married to Milton Bren, which is Donald Bren's son. Milton Bren was a big producer. And there was her other friend, Jane Russell, who was famous. She was of Howard Hughes' famous brassiere woman like Marilyn Monroe. And I got to see these people all the time. And they would have special dinners for their friends. And they go, like, make me something for my friend. There was something different, but they like seafood. And she came up with a dish for Claire Bren. It was called Lady Soul because their boat was called Lady Bren, I think. Lady Claire, that was the name of their yacht. And so they called it Lady Soul. And it was 2 pieces of sole that had scallops on it, broiled, and they put a crab, like a little crab cheese cream sauce on top with tortellini on the side. Nobody had this stuff back then. They're just going, what is that? And the people just flipped one of the awards and stuff.
That's
and
awesome.
Then she did a thing with abalone. We used to get the big abalone steaks, and they'd pound them out. And her friend said we'd fry them back then. So they're huge, as big as the plate. And they're white abalone from Mexico. And I think it was Claire Bren's friends was having a big birthday party, some celebrity. I don't remember her name, I'm sorry, but she loved abalone, and she also loved crab. Can you do something with abalone and crab? So my mom made this. It was kind of like a seafood burrito, but the outside was abalone, and the stuffing was Alaska king crab with a creamy sherry spread on side and broiled to perfection.
Wow.
And then a side of spaghetti with just butter and Parmesan cheese. And then it was finished with a sherry bechamel sauce with a little toasted almonds on the abalone. And it was just like, your first bite, it was like everybody just has a grin on their face. Just like, this is so good. It's amazing, And they're famous for the home of the abalone Irma. And then she's also famous for her bouillabaisse, which is the Marseille style. It was the vegetable base, not the chicken base. And people swear that it was like, they'd write poetry about it. And it was a fabulous dish. That had to be one of my favorites. It was hard to pick which one, but that was good. And she did these, so they do these gourmet dinners. And it was during the winter months when it was slower. And you had to be on a waiting list. And it was 2.5 years wait.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
2.5, yeah. And so it was only, the restaurant only seated 68 people. So they would take in 50 people to do this. And you close the restaurant.
That's crazy.
Nobody did this. There was a place up in maybe Tustin called The Hobbit that kind of did that.
Oh, yeah. The Hobbit's
They
still
kind of
going
did that,
there.
yeah. But not like my mom did it. So the first dishes come out, and she'd walk and tell everybody. They might have a guitar player playing a little flamenco music or Italian stuff, and she'd tell what you're going to have. And then on the fourth, I think it was 8 dishes. What do you call it? 8
Courses.
Courses, right? And they would in the middle. You get up, they tell everybody get up and go out from the restaurant and walk down Marine Avenue just to kind of walk it off. And they'd reset all the tables. And each course had its own bottle of wine. And back then, wines weren't very sophisticated because, a restaurant, most of them had like a carafe.
That was the cocktail era for America.
Yes,
Wines really didn't take off until the 70s. So
exactly. We didn't have a bar. So people would bring their own juice with them, their little flasks, like John Wayne and those guys. Well, you don't have, a bar here? How am I supposed to come here? Well, bring your own, Duke, And he would, And the funny story about the Duke was the kitchen door, there was no kitchen door. It was just open. And my mom would be there cooking in his little outfits. And she was like,
remember that.
darling. And people could stick their head in the kitchen and go, hi, Amelia. It was great. We love the food. So, hi, Joe. Say hi. She'd give you something to eat, She was always into it. She was just so into it. And John Wayne's there telling her, he's like, boy, I'd sure like to marry you, And she goes, well, you got to go talk to the guy out there. Well, who's that? That's my husband. And he goes out there and he goes, boy, I'd sure like to marry your wife. I told her I wanted to marry her. And he goes, well, what'd she say? He goes, she said I had to come talk to you. And he goes, well, I guess you can't marry her then. And that was that. And they laughed, shake hands. It was just all fun.
So Randy, tell us a little bit about the Coast Highway location, but also, if you wouldn't mind, going into a little bit about when you worked at the restaurant as a kid.
Well, it was by attrition, actually. I had no say in the matter. I became a dishwasher at 10 cents an hour back in 1961.
They paid you?
Yeah. And that was before they had machines in these smaller restaurants. And, you scrape the stuff off, you rinse it, then you wash it, you rinse it again, then you hot rinse it. And the glasses, it was like, then you hand dry everything with towels. And I had to work with these older guys. Well, it was cool because the older guys were surfers usually. And, it was back when us, what do we call ourselves? Like Judeo-Christian types actually worked for a living when we were young. And you had to, because your parents didn't just give you money to do things. You had to earn it. And it was usually about earning money to go buy a new surfboard or a bike or something to do outside things with. So anyway, that's where I first started washing dishes. And then I'd see that, like, I want to be a busboy because they get tips, so I make some extra money. And so I became a busboy. And then, my parents kind of told me, like, someday you're going to be in this restaurant. And, when you're little, you're just going, oh, whatever. Well, I don't know. Maybe I want to be a fireman. I actually wanted to be, I think when Jacques Cousteau came out, I wanted to be an aquaculturist, And so then my mom started teaching me how to cook. And that was a lot of fun.
You are a good cook. I
really
can attest
enjoyed
for that.
Yes, I started as a prep cook and chopping things and filling things and doing things. And then I started frying on the fryers, cooking. And it was so much fun because you have to pound the shrimp out. These are big Guaymas, under 12 per pound shrimp. And you can pound them out really big after you pat them down a little bit with breadcrumbs that we'd make. And then dip it in this batter. And they come out with these giant shrimp. So there's 3 of them to an order. And it was just so much fun to make them. The bigger, the better. And same with the abalone, to fry abalone. It's hard to do. And the fryer had to be at the right temperature. You don't want to put your fingers in there because it burns. And then I got to learn how to work the broiler. They had a special serrated broiler. It goes up and down, on one side's hotter than the other. So you could have stuff start a little more hotter, like fish, especially like sand dabs and thinner fish and sole. And you'd have to make sure you moved them over to the cooler side so you didn't overcook it. So we just keep it nice and moist. And then the thicker fish like swordfish and halibut and all that, sea bass, you would cook a little longer. So it was quite an ordeal. And then I finally got to work out on the front desk and do reservations. And you learn the whole gambit. And then my parents had this crazy idea with Southern Pacific Railroad, it was the Bircher family, to do 3 restaurants along the Sequoia Pacific line up in the wine country. And the flagship restaurant was going to be in Newport Beach. Well, so they built this restaurant next to the Arches restaurant where the old Warden Harrington Lumberyard used to be.
It was right next to the Arches.
And it was beautiful. It was a winery and a restaurant. And the restaurant was designed to look like an old Italian country inn with the grape stake ceilings and beautiful artwork and the antique furniture. It was an amazing place to look at. And the kitchen was amazing too. And it was a lot of work. We made fresh pasta daily.
You were the floor manager there, right?
Restaurant and kitchen manager.
Okay.
And since I knew how to cook, we had real chefs working for us, but they come in and see like, well, that's not how I cook it. So I'd have to step in.
What about Amelia? Did Amelia step in and say, well, that's not how I cook it?
Well, she started out, my mom actually, which wasn't fair to us, she didn't like the big restaurant.
Oh.
And neither did my sister. So they kind of like pulled back. And so I'm there, I'm stuck with this. Well, like someday this will all be yours. Like, yeah, right. And I'm 25 years old, 23, 24, whatever it was. And I wanted to do other things, whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent. But I had no choice in the matter. So that's what I did. And it just came down to a point where the people that own the property were very nice to us. The Bircher family, and they said they're selling the property, and we want you to have the first right to buy it, and that was me.
That was you.
I
just so you know, we tried to turn off the dinging phones, and now other phones are dinging.
Who was doing that?
Anyway.
So I had this crazy friend that has to not go just the whole message. He just goes, hi, how are you? Ding. What are you doing now? Ding. So anyway, that's what that was about.
All right. Well, anyway, we're going to wrap it up pretty quick. But
we did this whole thing, and we finally decided that, well, if we couldn't own the property, to me it was like, if we can't own the property, I don't want anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. So I went to my dad and said, buy the property. He goes, what are you, crazy? And so I went to some bankers. Well, I was only 25 years old. I didn't have much. I think I was 29 or something. So there was basically, we got to sell it. So we sold the restaurant, and we did quite well for not owning the property. We might as well own the property.
How long was that
sold
restaurant in business?
5 years.
Okay.
And we sold it to Larry Cano, that had Cano's Restaurants. He gave it to his daughter that called it Tacos and Tortillas, or TNTs.
Oh, I remember that.
And then it became, what's the other one? Chili's.
Oh, that's right.
And then now it's Newport Imaging Center.
I'm sure there's some Botox being done.
Talking about restaurants, yes. So that was the restaurant phase of that whole time. And we did really good. My parents did a great job, and people, it's kind of sad because you run into people and then they find out that like it's not open, but that's where we go every winter from Canada or somewhere, because that's where we met, and that's where we got engaged, and then we got married, and that's where we go for every anniversary, and it's gone. Yeah. And it's just like Balboa Island had a lot of friends and people and lovers, whatever, and they're gone, and it's just like this whole part of your life doesn't exist anymore. It's kind of sad. I was down there today, and I'm like, where did that house go? This is gone.
Yeah, it's a whole new chapter on the island.
Most people don't get to experience that in their hometown. So Newport's kind of it was different, but we did very well for it.
It was a different.
And I'm glad I'm in Hawaii now. It's a whole different vibe, and I just enjoy it.
Well, I have to put my 2 cents in. So I worked on Marine Avenue and many of those restaurants there, which you will learn through this whole podcast. But Randy Seton was the most handsome gentleman, a single gentleman that walked up and down Marine Avenue, and we would all come out of Meoni's Pizza Parlor and stare at him when he would walk by.
I didn't know I was that famous.
Yes, he was very famous. So, Randy, we're going to wrap this up, but I would like to ask you, what would you like people to know about Amelia that you don't think most people know? Is there something that you would like to clarify about? I mean, we all know she was just a over-the-top personality and a fantastic, beautiful woman. But is there something gentle or about her character or her love for you maybe that you would like to share with us?
Well, it's kind of like when she passed away, my sister was like, what am I going to put on her headstone? And I go, give me a minute or two. And it was like, loved her family, loved God, and loved her country.
Amen. Amen. That
was Amelia.
Well, thank you so much, Randy, for sharing this story. I know it's an iconic story and just a beautiful, beautiful story. And I remember the romance that went on between Gregor and Amelia because I knew them and your family. And
well, they're like, teenagers in love,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Their spark never died. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.